Well, welcome everybody to Open World Chat. I'm John Odom, and I'm here with Mark Card. Mark, how you doing?
Hi, everybody.
We haven't talked horror on this show since before you, Mark. I don't think. Have we talked horror?
Yeah, we talked about cosmic horror and immigration, I think, our second episode.
Right, of course. That's
But it's been a
one of
long
my-
time, so
Yeah, but that's one of my favorite episodes ever. I can't believe I didn't remember it. Right on. Well, we're going to talk about scariest movie moments. And I mean, we could easily get off track here a little bit. First of all, it's kind of sad that you don't get to see them because we're audio. Second of all, it means you're going to get lots of context and lots of spoilers. So right now, brace yourself. Spoilers galore. There will be more spoilers in this episode than we have ever had.
we're going to haunt you with the spoilers.
Yes, that's what will be scary is the actual spoilers. And, you know, I got to thinking about this, and it's such a rich topic. Horror is such a rich topic. I mean, there's a reason why there are so many podcasts that are just horror. And not just going through the movies, but the psychology of horror is amazing. And I sort of found my way on this a little bit when I started thinking about, you know, what makes something scary. And I feel like there's few different kinds of scariness. There's just the pure atmosphere build up, scare you thing.
Yeah.
There's disturbing. There's when something is, and that can be anywhere from subtly off, like some kind of uncanny valley kind of thing going on, to the extremely disturbing.
Yeah, like all of David Lynch's movies fit that disturbing category.
Yeah. And that's a kind of scary. And then there's the stuff that scared the shit out of us when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That,
I've got a couple of good episodes of that. Some stuff that's what's interesting to me and what I really liked about this topic is the more I thought about the movies I'm going to mention, the more I realized it revealed more about me than it did about the movies.
Well, now, isn't that an interesting thing to say? I think there is great wisdom in what you just said. Kudos, I say. Kudos.
Yeah, no, it became pretty apparent pretty quickly that this was as much about me and what scared me as a kid, as a teenager, and now as an adult, and what drives my fears rather than anything else. And I think that's what makes horror. I think that's what turns horror into that thing that all arts want. The main goal of any art is to take the personal and make it universal. And I think horror does that incredibly well.
Yeah, when it's on, that's what it depends on. And what's interesting is when you have these horror conversations, and this is why I think what you just said was brilliant too. When you have these horror conversations, they tend to go about the universal, the archetypal, but you just also placed it in terms of the very, very personal. The personal experience, the subjective experience. And that's a whole other direction for the conversation. And it's just as true. And yeah, I don't think people talk about that as much.
No, I don't think they do. And the interesting, I hate that word. I use it too much.
Interesting?
But yeah. The thing I really like, the more I got into this was it doesn't just reveal stuff about the viewer. It reveals a lot of stuff about the writers and the actors and the directors and everybody involved in that process. And, you know, it's taking experiences and then making them, like I said, simultaneously universal and personal. And something that you might not think of would be scary to you is just going to terrify the hell out of somebody.
Right. And so many of these things, of course, you know, obviously are going to be about the atmosphere that's built up. It's a hard thing to share without sharing an entire movie, right? You can't necessarily say to somebody, this is the scary scene ever. Let me show you how scary this is. And even if it's a jump scare, you need to be getting in the space to appreciate a jump scare.
Yeah.
But it'll fall flat if you do that. I got a couple on my list that, you know, I tried to look at, one in particular that we'll get to, because I want you to start, but that I looked at again in a video, and it's deeply unscary. It's got a little weird, but when you see it in the context of the movie, It's like, ah. And I
Yeah,
know it's
yeah,
not just me because I looked it up on the internet. Well, anyways, I'm getting into the whole description of it,
sure.
but yeah. So we should have some fun here. You want to throw one of your most terrifying moments at me here, and
Yeah,
let's get into it.
I want to talk about one that gets me as an adult, and it's from the Netflix series based on the Chinese science fiction trilogy, The Three Body Problem.
Hmm.
And in that movie, they're trying to get the data off a ship that's full of cult members who worship an alien, spoiler, who worship an alien race that's coming in the next 400 years to take over the planet. And the alien race is trashing all of our science because we are so fast and so good at science that they're going to catch up too quick. And will if they don't if they don't destroy our scientific research by the time they get here, we'll be able to repel them.
Hmm.
So this cult is worshiping them and they have daily conversations with the aliens. And the problem here is we know nothing. And they've invented these tiny little computers that are the size of a proton, but they can be expanded to be the size of the universe. And so they're monitoring all our communications and anything electronic. So they know everything we're planning. And so we need to get some information about them. The ship starts to go through the Panama Canal, and one of the main characters is doing, you'll excuse the pun, cutting edge work on nanofibers, extremely strong fibers that are very, very small. And they figure out if they're going to obtain the data on the ship, they can't just send a bunch of special operations troops on. They'll have time to destroy the data. They'll be resistant. You'll kill people because the ship is full of all kinds of people. It's men and women and children, and there's education facilities. They live on the ship. So the good guys in this show, at least for this episode anyway, they decide what they're going to do is they're going to string up this invisible net of nanofibers that are extremely sharp. And they're going to basically slice everyone into pieces as they pass through the Panama Canal. And what makes this scary for me is unless you are very lucky or have very fast reflexes, you're dead. There's no escaping it. You cannot avoid it. You can't see where the fibers are. You can't jump over them. You can't duck under them because they go well underwater all the way up to the top of the radar mast of the ship. And what really makes this scary is, yeah, sure, they show a few people getting cut in half and losing their heads or whatever it is. But what's really scary about this scene is how it slices through the steel hull of the ship, aircraft frames, radar sets, bulkheads, like it's a hot knife through butter.
Hmm.
And you can really imagine yourself being trapped on this giant former tanker that's just getting cut into tiny little ribbons, and it just scares the hell out of you.
Hmm.
And they don't show a lot of gore. They show mostly the destruction of the ship, and it is just it gets you in the guts and it gets you in the brain, and that's the best kind of scare for me.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, I've got to see this. You keep telling me I need to watch this.
Yeah, well,
Keep
what I'm
telling.
afraid of is that, like we discussed before, sometimes what's scary to me is not going to be scary to you.
Hmm.
So, what our audience may find out is that they think we're crazy, and these things aren't that scary.
Well, and that's a big problem that I have found too,
Yeah,
is when it's almost impossible if you describe something scary not to hype it up for somebody.
yeah,
When
yeah,
you
right.
describe something scary as such a charged word, such a charged feeling that you create this expectation. Oh my God, my friend was scared by this. It must be something. So, and it's hard not to be underwhelmed when you know something's coming or when you're expecting something bigger. I mean, not always. Sometimes scary is scary. But a
Yeah,
good example of that is I was doing some reading. I watch a fair amount of horror, not as much as I should.
Right.
But I did a little digging around to try to find something new. I've got my own list, right? But I'm like, before we talk, and I found Lake Mungo. Have you ever heard of
Hmm.
that movie?
No, but I've heard of I've heard it mentioned, but I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is it's not a found footage film. It's a
Okay.
fake documentary. So it has a lot of found footage in it. And let's see, when is it from? I'm going to look it up here because I was not prepared with it. But I do know that the director, they made one film, and this is it. It was written and directed by the one director, and I'm not finding it because all I can see is the actual Lake Mungo, which is not a wet lake; it's a dried up lake. So that
Right,
just
right. Okay.
added to a sort of. And Joel Anderson is the name of the writer and director, and it's a documentary about the death of this teenage girl, how it affected the family, and the story that went around the family. There's it looks like it's a ghost story. And this one,
Right.
I'm going to spoiler the hell out of. I won't do that, I think, with most of these, but this one, it's because it's the climactic scene that everyone was talking about.
Hmm.
Everyone was talking about the scene. Oh, it's the scariest scene of the year. And I saw it and I thought it was interesting. I thought it was cool. I was kind of impressed. It did involve a jump scare, which they don't usually get me, and this one made me twitch. It wasn't just a jump scare.
Right.
There was one mixed in there. But anyways, the supernatural element is completely, to get into the spoilers here, completely swept away. There's nothing supernatural going on until the end, and they drop us into it again unexpectedly, and it's very effective. And it's this scene where this girl encounters an someone else walking on the trail, which at night, of course, which is herself as a bloated body
Hmm.
because she drowns later on. It's the premise of the entire movie is going back and investigating this drowning. So she encounters herself in that form, and then they add a little jump scare in it. They cut back to the image they had shown us previously when they identified the body,
Hmm.
and the whole thing was. It was scary. I wasn't as scared as I should have been, but I've thought back on that scene,
Hmm.
and it's only because I got overhyped for it, because it was an impressively done scene.
Yeah.
It was scary. I wish I hadn't read that, or it would have genuinely creeped me out.
Right.
But I mean, it's a perfect example of the problem of spoilers. It's fun for something like this because you can listen, you can hear if any of yours
Hmm.
are in the list. But yeah, so I mean, anyways, I recommend the movie if I haven't spoiled it,
Right. Right. Right.
which I just did. So never mind. Anyways,
Well,
that's
some
subjective
movies you can
experience.
spoil and still enjoy. I mean, when I saw The Sixth Sense, I figured it out immediately, but it was still a great movie. I mean,
Yeah.
then it turned into something like for me, like Memento.
Hmm.
And so, no, just because we're spoiling movies doesn't mean you shouldn't see them, and doesn't mean that you're not going to enjoy it as much as we did. So
Hmm.
definitely go and see these movies just to see the moments we're going to have.
Yeah. And
I got another
especially,
one,
oh,
and
yeah.
I want to talk about things that scare you as kids,
Oh, yeah. That's another whole topic. Yeah. That's cool.
because sometimes what they do is, uh, I think what a lot of people who've experienced some kind of trauma, and sometimes these movies, if the kids see them too young, they are trauma. Is you find yourself going back to that situation over and over and over again, just trying to resolve out what it was that scared you. And so we're going to talk about my earliest memory of the movies.
All right.
My earliest memory of the movies, I was 5.
Well.
And, it was the late 60s. And, if people had stuff to do, they would ask their neighbors to watch the kids, and if the neighbors were teenagers, you trusted them. And, it was just a thing that happened. So my mom had to go somewhere, and none of my brothers and sisters were home. And so my mom dropped me off at the neighbors across the street. And I convinced her to take me to see Planet of the Apes.
Hmm.
So this is the original Planet of the Apes movie, Charlton Heston and Kim Novak and the original one from the 60s. And, you know, the movie opens with a quiet scene on a starship that's traveling across, the solar system.
Oh, I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Right. And it's very calm and it's very placid and there's nothing scary about it. And Charlton Heston closes himself up in his own um, uh, um, hibernation chamber. And then a few seconds later, things go crazy. You hear all these alarms, and it's uh, there's something wrong with the ship. And so he gets out of his hibernation chamber and he looks over at the other crew members. What does he find?
The body.
Yeah, that's right. There's a body of this horribly desiccated, shrunken, brown corpse, and it's a woman. And evidently, there was a leak in her hibernation chamber, and she died on the voyage. That's just the first part that scared me.
Yeah, that is a scary moment. I
It's a
forgot all about
really,
that. When I was a kid, that was it was kind of a jump scare. But it was great.
yeah, no, it's really effective. And I've thought about that for years and years and years. And it's one of my earliest general memories, in addition to being one of my earliest memory about the movies. But then there's this giant chaotic scene where they're trying to figure out what to do. And the spaceship crashes in this giant lake and they're sinking fast and they're trying to get out. And there's all this panic and general mayhem. And finally, when they get out, they get in the in the life raft and they make it to shore and they're walking around and they've got these crazy backpacks that had to be flotation devices for boating. Now they do with props. And then there's this other scene where they're kind of just walking around and they're in a desert and they come on a jungle. And then the second scare in this movie hits you where they're with a group of humans and all of a sudden there are these horseback riders and they're running through the crowd of humans in the middle of this jungle and or I guess it's a cornfield, isn't it? And
Yeah.
they're pursuing them, they're hunting them, but you never see who's on the horses. You have no idea who's on the horses. And there's this just general mayhem and panic, and they just don't know what to do. And that just scared me to death. And so the rest of the movie, two things happen. The rest of the movie is I was on edge the entire movie because I was waiting for something traumatic like the crash or the hunting scene the whole movie. And the second thing that happened was my poor next door neighbor, she must have been 15 or 16 at the time. I spent the whole movie in her lap after that. So it's interesting. I like this scene because it shows the real sensitivity to calm chaos, calm mayhem, calm, and it works in on a lot of levels. It's very visceral, but you're also kind of thinking, oh my God, what would I do here? How am I going to fix this? How am I going to survive that? What kind of opportunities do I have to change things? And so it's a really comprehensive kind of memory for me. And that's why I had to mention it because I was 5 years old.
Yeah, I was thinking of a thing that terrified me when I was really young. I couldn't have been. No, I was pretty young. And I went searching for it because it burned itself into my brain. But it's another one. Well, I mean, it's from an unlikely source. Yours
Uh-huh.
with that body, especially, that was a good scare.
Ooh,
That's not unlikely at all. But in terms of kid things, and I'm going to set aside for a moment, and I hope this isn't on your list because I'm setting it aside.
okay.
But the Wicked Witch and the Wizard of Oz popping up on that crystal ball, which is universally terrifying for all children.
Uh,
But so as far as universality, though, I'm going to put that over here and give you something weird.
yeah.
And that was from a first season Space 1999
Uh-huh.
episode. You ever watch that show?
I watched a couple of episodes, but I never really watched it carefully.
An
So,
underappreciated gem. And,
Yeah.
people complain that the science is bad, but, the science is bad with pretty much all sci-fi, with a few exceptions.
Well, yeah, they're going to have to change things around so people understand it.
Right. And make it interesting, make it scary and all that stuff. But there's this episode called Dragon. Oh, I looked it up and now I don't remember what it's called. It was first Dragon's Domain. That
Okay.
was it. And there's this sort of Sargasso Sea of dead spaceships that they find. And there's a monster there that's been killing everybody. And the monster shows up in a very creepy way. They're on, not much of a budget. So they have to get a little creative with the camera approach and the camera angle. And this thing shows up. And I didn't go back and look at it again before we did this. To see, because I'm sure it was really bad, but it's this weird sort of tentacly, sort of Lovecrafty monster, and it would like, pull people into this mouth thing and then shoot out a desiccated body, and it creeped the holy shit out of me.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No,
Oh
I
my
can see
God.
that.
And it's burned itself into my brain. I've carried it with me. Probably anybody else would see that. They wouldn't give it a second thought. It's like
Well,
the. Oh,
it
go ahead.
reminds me of the Sarlacc pit.
Oh yeah, that probably freaked out a whole bunch of kids. It probably did.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sure it did.
yeah, no doubt. Um, I my kid, I know there was one that kept us up at night. My oldest, when he was very young, we watched Spirited Away,
Uh-huh.
and the scene where the parents are turned into pigs. He
Yeah.
couldn't. He couldn't sleep forever. It just.
Well, sure. Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, like I said, you don't think about the possibility your kids could be transmogrified into pigs. I mean, these are the people that feed you and take care of you and give you money when you need it and take you places. So, I mean,
right.
yeah, that would be horrifying.
Yep, yep. You don't necessarily know when you're a parent what you're doing to your kid when you let them watch Miyazaki, right?
But yeah, you don't. That's definitely true with him. And so another thing came to mind when you were describing this, and it doesn't. I'm not going to narrow it down to one scene, but the Reavers from Firefly,
Yeah, they're terrifying
they
for sure.
are, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that it's not what you see them do. You don't see them do all the stuff that they say they do.
Hmm.
It's from the sheer panic in Mal and uh I forget the his first mate. What is her name? Zoe. Both
Yeah.
Mal and Zoe, it freaks them out, and they're the ones who are always calm and always cool and always keep their heads in a difficult situation. And then when they talk about the Reavers, they're like, "Come on, let's go. We got to get out of here. Drop the
Hmm.
money. Forget what we were doing. Let's go. We got to get out of here."
Hmm.
And so, and again, we're going to talk about this later. A lot of the horror that just scares the hell out of you is implied.
Hmm.
It's all
Yeah.
implied. So they talk about what the Reavers do. Yeah, they rape you, they skin you, and then they eat you, and then not necessarily in that order.
Hmm.
That that one sentence alone is terrifying. What order do they do it in?
Hmm.
And then you start thinking about all the permutations of that order. How would that work? So, and
Yeah.
it's just, there's a lot of things going on in the scene that you've talked about. There's implied horror, there's the actual, gore. So, I mean, this is a really great topic.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got another one for me?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the implication of something terrifying versus this the in your face, and
Mhm.
that can walk hand in hand with the unnerving horror, I think,
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of times. Because I was thinking, you talk to a lot of people the last 30 years or so, what are real scary movies that jumped into your head and that jump into your mind when you think of that. I think one, of course, is going to be The Ring,
Yeah.
which everybody saw, and I think was well deserving of all the praise it got. I think it was a very scary movie. It actually scared me a little bit, and I don't scare. And I actually think too, and this is maybe sacrilegious, but I think it was superior to the Japanese original.
You know what?
Um,
I was going to ask you if you mean Ringu or The Ring.
I mean The Ring. I mean The Ring.
I think The Ring is a better movie too.
Yeah, that's interesting. We agree on a lot of this kind of blasphemous stuff a lot. I like that.
Well, like I said, I think about things differently. Um,
Well, there's a scene in it. There's a bunch of scenes. It's like, which scene do you want to pick in The Ring? Because there's coming out of the TV. There's one of the best jump scares ever, which is when they open the closet and they get the flash of
Haiti.
the. Yeah. But I
She,
had to settle on one. I'm like, I'm going to
yeah.
settle on one. And what is the scariest thing in that movie? And I think at the end of the day, it's that creepy ass video when
Oh God,
they
yes.
made that video. It was brilliant. There weren't obvious scares in it, but it was scary as hell. It was unnerving. It was atmospheric. It was implied. It was all of that, and they sustained it for those few minutes. It was
Yeah.
really impressive.
Yeah, no, I definitely have to agree with you about the video. It's like David Bowie and David Lynch collaborated on steroids and acid.
And
It
acid,
is
right?
it is so strange and so alien and things that and here's the thing. I think they played a lot on expectations.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think when you hear this, you watch this video, you think, oh my God, it's going to be, really, really obviously scary,
Hmm.
that it's literally going to scare you to death and you won't be able to stop the process because you were so scared. And then you get this thing that's just flat out weird.
Hmm. And you're
And
right, they hype it up. It's
yes,
hyped in the movie, and yet you get it, and it's still scarier than hell.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's nothing like you expect it's going to be, but it still scares you to death because you think, oh, well, yeah, this is a video. It's not going to, oh my God.
And
Just
then you're
seeing the
wondering
video.
a week later after you went to see it in the theater if you're going to die.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really like that one. And I want to talk about another movie. It's actually a set of movies. One was uh a Swedish vampire film, and the other was the American remake of it. Do you know the movies I'm talking about?
Oh, Let the Right One In, or
The original one is the Swedish one, and it's Let Me In.
oh, Let Me In is the original. I've had it the other
That's
way
right.
around. Okay.
And then the other one is the American remake, and it had Chloe Grace Moretz in it. It was called Let the Right One In.
Hmm. I
And
never
there's a,
saw the original, but I saw the remake, which I thought was excellent.
yeah, well, I want to talk about, the scene in the pool
Yeah, vaguely remember.
where
I don't
they're
remember it
trying to
very well.
drown him in the pool. They're trying to drown the main character in the pool.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The the Swedish one is so much more terrifying because you don't see what the vampire is doing to the guy in the pool.
Hmm.
So you hear screams muffled by the water, and you see the kid who's being bullied by this guy. He's trying to struggle to breathe and get out of the pool, and you see like things that flash by, like it's obvious that she's flying over the pool, the vampire is, and has got the guy, and his arm is dragging through the water. And you just see the arm drag through the water behind the guy who's trying to get out of the pool. And then in another scene, as he's struggling to get out, you see this thing splash in the water, and you can't see what it is at first. And then it's the guy's head just sinking to the bottom of the pool. So you never see the vampire tear this kid, this bully, limb from limb, but you see the effects of what the process is.
Hmm.
And I wanted to turn off the TV. I could not.
Wow.
You can't stop looking at it. And in the American version, it's direct, outright gore.
Hmm.
And the Swedish version is just so much scarier. And
I've got to get around to watching that because I loved the American version. I thought they did a really good job.
No, both movies are
Hmm.
definitely must sees.
Hmm.
But if there's a listener out there who is thinking about watching both of these movies, uh, do the Swedish one first,
Hmm.
and then do the American one because I think you'll do better, and you'll see the bigger differences if you see the original one first. I don't always recommend that.
Hmm.
I don't always think that if there's a foreign version and an American version, it's just like with The Ring. The American version of The Ring is a much creepier, much more environmentally scary movie than Ringu.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's another one of my recommendations. Let's see what else is on my list here because the more I kept doing it, more I kept thinking about it, the more stuff popped up. I want to talk about a TV one.
Hmm.
Did you see the show American Gods?
Oh, I love American Gods. Yeah. Although, you know what? I still haven't seen the second season.
Ah,
Is this from, you got one from the second season?
yeah, this is I think it's from the second season. So
Hmm.
of course, Ian McShane plays Odin.
Hmm.
No, it has to be the first season. So Ian McShane is playing Odin. And of course, the main character is the guy, what they call him, Friday, or is no, yeah,
It's,
he's Friday.
hmm.
And the character, which is Odin, is only revealed at the beginning as Wednesday.
Hmm.
And so he meets with some other gods, and with him is a brilliantly played goddess of the dawn, Ostara. And Kristen Chenoweth, the Broadway star, she
Hmm.
plays Ostara, the goddess of the dawn. And I think she's Mesopotamian or Babylonian or Sumerian. Uh, and the scene I'm talking about is when Ian McShane reveals himself as Odin.
Hmm.
And the first part of the scene is he's talking about the new gods, and you have to see the series to know what he means by the new gods.
Yeah.
But and the first line he says is, I dedicate these deaths to Ostara, goddess of the dawn. And one of the new gods says, what deaths? And then bam, there's a giant thunderclap and a lightning bolt, and it kills 10 of the new god's henchmen, just lays them out instantly. So in addition to being funny, that's scary. And then he reveals who he is. And the way he does it is he's talking to the main character in the series and he's saying, you want to know who I am? Do you want to know my name? And then he starts going through all of these names
Right.
that
All
Odin had
Father,
in
One
Norse
Eye.
mythology.
Yeah.
And he gets, the images, you see clouds rolling in and you see birds flying away and all these really kind of classic horror movie images when something really bad is about to happen. And he just gets louder and louder and more insistent and more powerful. And the camera angles change more and more and more to make him look bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, at the end of this scene, he goes, I am Odin. And it just scares the hell out of everybody all around him. And if you're a teenager, I don't care how hardcore you think you are. If you see that scene, it's going to scare you. And knowing what I know so much about mythology and just knowing the background and knowing how much of a badass Odin was, I look at that scene and I go, holy crap.
Hmm.
If I were there, let's just say I would be probably better off if I were wearing the brown pants
Right.
because he
Even the
just,
minimized,
yeah,
weaker,
it's
diminished
not,
Odin. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I said, it's one of those scenes that gets you in the brain and the gut.
Hmm.
And those are the scariest scenes for me. The ones where you think, holy crap, if I were in that situation, God, what the hell would I do?
I want to throw one at you. I'm going to stick with the real. I guess some of this mainstream stuff is low hanging fruit, but
Yeah,
like I say, it's some of these have big followings and big reputations for a good reason, and I want to give them
sure.
shout outs. And I think another one, if you ask people last 30 years, people who watch horror, give me a big horror movie that deserved to be big. I think a lot of people would say Hereditary. You ever see that?
Yeah. Oh, no, I haven't seen it, but I know what you're going to talk about.
Oh, it's well, there's a lot you could talk about it, but there is one that everybody seems to come back to. So,
Yeah.
this is directed by Ari Aster. Okay, and this was like a first movie. This person's got talent. They went on and did Midsummer, which
Yeah.
is also a super cool movie.
Yeah.
Which
That movie reminds me a lot of The Burning Man or The Wicker Man.
The Wicker Man. Yes, it does. I agree 100%. But there's a lot of creepy shit in Hereditary. There's a lot. It's got a lot of gore. It's got a lot of just
Yeah.
subtle stuff. It gives you the whole package. And there's
Yeah.
this one moment that's a sort of jump scare that's also just really creepy. And I don't even know how to describe it. So I'm really putting this out there for the people who've seen it because I can't describe it
Sure.
in such a way that even makes any sense, let
Right.
alone does it justice. But there's the scene near the end where you've got, possessed mom who's like climbing all over the walls and is like this creaturey thing chasing our poor tortured main character, a teenage boy running away, from his
Yeah.
mom who's like become a monster, and he hides up in the attic, which is in this particular movie not where you want to go. But it's one of those, of course, it's one of those attic doors that you pull down from the ceiling, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're always one of those. So we hear, while he's up there, we hear this pound, 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 pound. And they sort of flash down, not for it's a long flash. It's
Yeah.
not like it's not like an exorcist demon flash. You get
Sure.
more of it than that. But mom is like on all fours on the ceiling, pounding her head, just bum, 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 freakishly, irrationally fast, just onto that attic door. And it is the freakiest damn thing. It is one of the scariest moments you will see. And it covers a lot of the checklists of scary.
Yeah.
But it's pure. It's nothing roundabout, nothing that just gets in the back of your head and lives there. It's just a right in front scare, just down to basics. Ah! So it's a good one.
You made me think of another one that wasn't on my list at all. Did you see the 2013 movie Dark Skies?
No,
Kerry
I don't
Russell,
think.
Josh Hamilton, J.K. Simmons.
No, it's got J.K. Simmons in it. I got to see it though.
The
He's my
premise of the
hero.
movie is that this family is being terrorized by aliens who are after their kid.
Yeah, that's not good.
And one of the things the aliens do is when you see them, they put you in a trance. And often you will do things that endanger yourself.
Hmm.
And so Carrie Russell, she's got her child hidden in a safe place that she thinks. And the aliens, she sees them land and get out, but you never see them get out. And she's standing in front of a plate glass window. And she just starts banging her head on the plate glass window, just
Jeez.
banging it and banging it. And it starts to crack. And you see blood appear on her forehead. And then it flattens out on the glass. And then it gets more on her face. And she's just completely somewhere else,
Hmm.
smashing her head on the glass. And again,
That's
it's
creepy.
it's creepy, but it's also gory.
Yeah.
And when the aliens go away because they can't get to her son, I think I'm remembering this right. She snaps out of the trance and just looks at herself, horrified, and then
Hmm.
collapses because she's concussed. So she had no idea she was doing this.
Hmm.
And that's really scary to have somebody take your body over and make it so you harm yourself so these aliens can get away from you. I mean,
Yeah.
can do what they want to do and kidnap your son.
Gore is such an interesting topic in when you talk about horror and scary stuff, because gore is not gore is inherently disturbing.
Yeah,
So you can get some of that disturbing element, but it's not necessarily inherently scary.
right.
But if you use it right, it's of course really effective. Not all things that are gory are scary, but some things that are scary are gory, and I think it's
And,
easy to dismiss the power of gore, but when used right, it's an effective tool for the toolbox.
and I think the best example of that by far is the chest burster in Alien.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
example.
because you know something is horrible is happening, but you can't see it until all of a sudden you really can. And you really don't want to see it, and it is really gory.
Well, and you
So,
know the thing about that movie too, where that pop, where it, there's
yeah,
that first burst before the little alien pokes its head out, and it's like this splatter
yep,
that they didn't tell the actors that was coming.
that was genius. I love that.
Yeah,
They didn't tell it. The only person who knew that was coming was John Hurt, and so all those reactions are real reactions.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was really great direction. Um,
That was genius.
let's see
I'm
what
glad you
else.
mentioned Alien because that certainly deserves a mention.
Well,
Of
yeah, you
any
got to do
list like
that.
this.
But see, I think there's something scarier for me.
Then, oh, in that
And
movie,
yes, in that movie, for me, it was scarier. And here's what it is. So you know the character Ash, right?
I knew you were going there. Yeah, go ahead.
So Ash, there you watch the movie, and there's just something off about the dude. You just know there's something creepy about this guy, and you think, well, maybe he's this or that, and it's so in the movie. Sigourney Weaver, several people are dead by now. And Sigourney Weaver goes to the computer, the AI that runs the ship, Mother. And she's like, what the hell is going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? And Mother is not really giving her a whole lot of information. And in the background, so Sigourney Weaver sitting in this command chair where the computer is. And in the background, you see Ash slip behind her. And then when she finds out that the whole purpose of the mission was to get this alien they want to use as a weapon, and the crew and the ship and everybody else is expendable, he decides he's going to kill her. And so he really roughs her up bad. He's not just going to kill her, he's going to torture her first and then kill her. And in the middle of this, where he's got her pinned down and he's strangling the hell out of her, Yaphet Kotto, one of my favorite 70s movie stars,
No, he's great. Was
comes
great.
in
May he
with a
rest in
giant
peace.
wrench and just takes the guy's head off. And then when he checks on her and makes sure he's okay, then you see that Ash is a robot. And in addition to his
Running
head being
around.
off to the side in a weird position to his body, it's still connected to his neck. And he's got this horrible lubricant coming out of his mouth and his eyes and his ears,
And
and
his
it's
neck,
all,
and it's like, yeah.
yeah, just really gross. But what scared me about that is that you have no idea he's a robot.
Hmm.
And all along, you think he's just this creepy other crew member who's got a secret. And the word I used that is the guy is just oily all the way through the movie,
Hmm.
just oily. But then you know something's wrong, and then you think, "Oh my God, he's dead." God, who? And the movie gives you a second to breathe after the attack on Sigourney Weaver, and then Yaphet Kotto coming in and taking his head off with a wrench. And then, of course, you don't get to breathe anymore
Hmm.
because they go back to the scene with him, and he looks terrible, and he's oozing all this fluid, and his voice is different. It's just a really scary scene.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I actually, that is the freakiest scene in the movie. It's not the
yeah,
iconic scene. It's not the sort of standard suspense moments, but I'm going to agree with you. For my money, that was the freakiest and the scariest. If you don't know what's coming, you're like, what am I looking at?
yeah, exactly.
Ah.
Yeah. So it's creepy, it's gory, it's downright terrifying because, you know, at the same time you're thinking, yeah, they killed the guy, but they took his head off to do it. Ah.
Mm,
So there's shock, there's horror, there's disgust, there's bewilderment, there's creepiness. It's the scariest scene in the movie. It just is.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
and it's not the one everybody's going to talk about.
No.
That's because nobody's expecting the chest burster scene.
Yeah. Well, nobody was expecting the weird head hanging off thing either.
Well, but it comes earlier in the movie
Yeah.
is the reason why I think it's more famous.
Yeah.
But
And
that's
it's
kind of
iconic. It's iconic in a way that nothing else in that movie is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the thing that sets it apart from many, many, many other horror movies.
Yeah. And
I've been hogging the conversation here, but I just want to talk about one more.
okay.
And this is completely different. This is the exact opposite. I have found that many scary moments in movies are not super gory, lots of VFX,
Hmm.
not jump scary, not monster scary or fantasy scary, but the fear comes from holy crap, not only could that happen, it has happened.
Hmm.
And I think one of the most iconic versions of this is the very last scene of Psycho, the
Hmm.
Hitchcock movie.
Sure.
And in that movie, and if you've not seen this, it's a movie from 1960 or 62 or something. You should definitely see this.
Well,
But
if you consider yourself a horror buff and you haven't seen it, then you're not a horror buff.
yeah, I don't, yeah, exactly. You've got some bad credentials there. But for those of you who haven't seen it, we find out that this kind of creepy but otherwise normal seeming guy has taken on, after his mother died, he kept her body around and has taken on, she was abusive to him, taken on her personality too. And that's what's causing him to murder all these women. Because as soon as he feels sexually attracted to the women, he becomes his mother and his mother shames him. And then she has to kill the women who are tempting her poor, naive son. But you don't really know that he's taken on her personality until the very end of the movie, when the cops are kind of in the background, sotto voce, talking about what happened and how he got that way and why he's completely crazy. But he has this inner monologue where he's thinking in his mother's voice, and she's just this little old lady wouldn't hurt a fly. And in the meantime, there's a fly crawling all around his face,
Mm.
and he's not blinking and he's not reacting, and he's just sitting there calmly. And slowly he gets this creepy Kubrick stare, the Kubrick bad guy stare.
Mm.
And then he smiles very, very subtly. And they push in originally while they show him singing, I mean, thinking this stuff. And then as he becomes more and more his mother, his dead mother, they back out. And when they back out to a medium shot, he's just got this really creepy, evil look on his face. And man, it's the kind of movie that you think, holy crap, there are really people out there like this
Mm.
who have suffered this kind of trauma and are, raping and dismembering and murdering women and taking pictures of them and keeping, video or audio tapes of their torture sessions. And you just think, oh my God, you know, it's not some fantasy invention. It's people have really done this stuff and people are still doing this stuff. And one of the things you find out when you watch the David Fincher TV show Manhunter is that, well, there are a couple of hundred serial killers out there at any given time, and the FBI may or may not ever catch them. And so, oh,
And it's interesting you say it's real because supposedly, and I may be wrong about this, but Robert Bloch was inspired by Ed Gein. Uh,
as one of the people, there's also a guy named Albert Fish
hmm,
who was an earlier one of the earlier documented cases of it. It was the toolbox murders, and Albert
okay.
Fish was
Heard of
was
that.
killing and eating women in New York.
Ye gods.
And
Yeah, Ed Gein was, of course, cutting off pieces and nailing to the wall. So neither of these really are Psycho, but it's just interesting that he would look into that kind of mentality through them because uh Psycho is tame by comparison.
Sure, but it's the psychological horror that gets
Mm,
you. It's the fact that you know this is going on, and you know there are people out there like that, and this isn't just, it's not a 40-foot tall kaiju.
mm,
It's
sure.
a guy who can present to society as a normal human being and can be quite cheerful. It's like the serial killer Ed Kemper. You know Ed Kemper? He was a serial killer in the South Bay area in California
Oh
in
God,
the
I
late
know that name.
60s. And he was 6'9"
Oh Jesus, that's
and
scary.
300 pounds.
Oh
And,
God.
and this guy was really creepy, but he could really turn on the charm. So he lived in Santa Cruz, California. And when he would go back and forth between Santa Cruz and San Jose, he would pick up hitchhikers
Hmm.
and he'd take them out in the woods and murder them.
Oh, great.
And so there's a very famous scene in that show, Mindhunter, which is based on a series of video interviews with Edmund Kemper. Edmund Kemper had a genius IQ.
Hmm.
And in fact, he was imprisoned earlier because he killed his grandparents when he was a teenager.
Hmm.
Well, he was so smart, he figured out how to convince the psychotherapists in this juvenile psychiatric prison that he was cured. And he got back out and started murdering again.
That always seems like it shouldn't be that hard to do, but I guess it's hard to do if you're actually crazy. So,
Right. And so Ed Kemper said, people had no idea I was out there. He said, I would meet a girl and I would say, wow, I'd really like to go out on a date with her. And then another voice in my head would say, I wonder what her head looks like on a stick.
jeez.
So
Yeah.
these people are out there.
Yeah,
And and,
sure.
and the movie Psycho shows you might never know. Well, you might never know this person could kill you or would kill you or is fantasizing about killing you. And that kind of thing in the movie is really scary to me.
Since you summoned Hitchcock here, I got to say just real quick, my
Sure.
favorite Hitchcock scary scene is in The Birds, actually. When you already know the birds are, I mean, from the title, the birds are a problem. And The Birds, let me just say, is a brilliant movie. It's one
Yeah.
of those few movies that manages to completely change genres, turn on a dime,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it works
Yep.
masterfully. It does not start off as a horror movie, and then all of a sudden you're in a horror movie. But anyways, the scene on the playground of the school where I think it's Suzanne Plachette is out there. I'm trying to remember it. I haven't seen this in years. But you start seeing there's monkey bars back there behind her, and you start
Hmm.
seeing a crow land there and another crow, and there's a few more crows, and just you start thinking, huh, there's a lot of crows over there. And then they cut away, and when they cut back, the monkey bars are completely crowded, full of crows. Like,
Just
whoa, okay, run away, run away. So that was good.
just covered. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, it's those subtle moments that, you may not notice that in the first time you see the movie. But when you do, you think, how did I miss that?
yeah. Well, that actually, in this case, that one wasn't that subtle. The
Yeah.
buildup was very subtle. So that was part of what was effective. Very subtle buildup, then boom in your face, and you're like, "Whoa!" Suddenly, it's not subtle anymore. Shit,
I'm
it's
going to
not a
talk.
lurking threat anymore. It is a
Right.
threat, and it
Yeah.
just happened while you were glancing away. It was really, really great. I want to say though, because I don't want to get lost. To
Yeah.
me, the scene that has scared me the most
Yeah.
in movies ever was from an underappreciated horror movie, the third Exorcist movie,
Oh, yeah.
Exorcist 3. If you have you seen that?
Yeah.
Then you know where I'm going,
Yeah, I do.
probably. The scene in the hospital, you're
Yes.
looking down the hall and it's just completely quiet. It also almost that scene feels a little Kubrickian, you could say
Yes.
too,
Yes.
because you
Especially
get the
because of the lighting.
and just that fixed camera at a distance, and
Yep.
the sound not really adjusted for, the sound is at a distance kind of too.
Hmm.
And you're just watching this quiet nighttime scene, with this nurse at a station going back and forth. She hears something. She goes and checks it out. It's nothing. There's this security guard comes in, sits down, leaves, comes back, wanders out. Just when maybe, because the tension is, it's so thick, but maybe right on the edge of starting to feel, is anything going to happen? Am I getting bored? Comes, walking out right behind her, this nun with the head chop scissors.
Oh, the giant pair of shears.
Yes, the
And,
just walking right up behind her,
and
and
arms
we
are
don't see the
stretched
head
out.
get cut off, but oh my God, I saw that movie in the theater. It's one of the only times I've been genuinely scared. It's because I was in there, I was by myself, and I didn't realize at the time, but I had a fever. I was running a temperature.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was like, oh no. So that one got me more than anything, at least in my adult life.
Yeah. So the guy who wrote the book and wrote the screenplay for the original Exorcist, that's his favorite Exorcist sequel because there are like three or four.
Well, the
And
second one is largely considered a complete joke, like
yeah,
avoided at all costs.
but the third one is great.
Yeah.
Uh uh yeah, that scene is, and the funny thing about that scene is there are a lot of slasher movies who do similar things, which do similar things, but they're not effective.
Hmm.
They're not effective the way this one is. This one is, you're right. You're at the point where you think, oh, she's escaped the bad guy, and then wham, he's just on her in three steps, and his arms are stretched completely out straight, and the jaws of this giant pair of orthopedic scissors are just wide open, and what's going to happen to her. You never
Yeah.
see it,
Yeah.
but you know that there's a head on one end of the room, and there's 10 gallons of blood on the floor, and yeah, that's a scary moment.
And you know what he nailed when he
But
did that too, I think, is two amazing things going on in that movie, in that
yeah,
scene. One is to keep that tension because the whole scene is like 4 minutes long
right,
and nothing happens. But there's that tension there. You have that tension maintained for all that time without
yeah,
anything going on. And then, right when it's been just long enough, like I say, you start wondering, is anything happening? Am I getting bored? You start to relax a little.
uh-huh,
And then, boom, then they hit you with what's essentially
yep,
a jump scare on, steroids.
yeah,
They get you right when you're relaxing. Anyways, I could go on forever just about that
yeah.
scene, but I love that
That
scene.
one's super effective. I'm going to talk about a couple more. The opening scene of Nope,
Oh, Nope. Nope was
where
pretty cool.
yeah, where Gordy the chimp on the set of that TV show,
Yeah.
he's already gone on this horrible rampage,
Mhm.
and he's killed both the adults in that show. And he's bouncing around, but you never see him. You just see an empty shoe up against the wall and a woman's body with her legs just twitching every once in a minute in a while. She's just
Mhm.
twitching, twitching, twitching. And you hear this tons of crowd, I mean, officials running around and cops, and they're screaming at the chimp, and you just mostly see this shoe leaning on the wall. And it's the woman's shoe, but she's been torn to pieces. And then you see the chimp run up, and he picks up another shoe, and he's just whacking her and whacking her and whacking her and whacking her with the shoe. And she doesn't move at all. And then it backs off, and you see the kid who runs the show as an adult in the movie. He's sitting under the table just quivering. And again, you don't see a lot of the violence. You don't see the woman getting her face ripped off, which is, by the way, one of the things that makes it so scary,
Mhm.
because that's what a chimp does. They'll bite your face off. That's how
Right.
they attack you. And we know this because it's happened
It's happened.
lots
Yeah.
of times. And that whole trauma just informs the movie at every level.
Yeah. That
The
is a
rest,
really scary scene. That was an
yeah, it
incredibly
is.
effective scene.
It
And I
is
do think it was
terrifying,
the,
and it's terrifying because of what you don't see.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, there's blood, but you don't see it being made.
No, yeah, you
Yeah.
don't see
Hmm.
the horror that just happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Horror that just happened is implied.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
no, that's up there with the scene in the same movie where you see the people getting sucked up into the digestive tract of this creature, which is the other really horrifying moment in that movie, I think.
and what's interesting is this is kind of the opposite of Alien. Uh, a lot of people will tell you the scariest scene in Dope is the people who've been sucked up into Jean Jacket and he's slowly digesting them,
Yeah.
and that comes in the middle of the movie.
Hmm.
But for me, the scariest one is the very first one. That
I
is the
think I think I
scariest
agree
part.
with you. In fact,
And
I know I
and the
agree
thing
with you.
is, after that, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop
Hmm.
the whole movie. You are on edge the whole movie. And once you're on edge, like uh he doesn't let up on you.
Hmm.
Jordan Peele does not let up.
Yeah.
Now, my candidate for the second scariest thing in that movie
Hmm.
is when his dad dies.
Hmm.
He's
Hmm.
riding a horse
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden falls over. You know what I'm talking about? Keith
Yeah.
David
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
riding that horse, and
Hmm.
he's just riding a horse, and he's talking to his son, and he's giving him a hard time, and then all of a sudden he convulses and falls off the horse.
Hmm.
And then what makes that scary is what killed him. It was a nickel that dropped out of jean jacket,
Right.
and that's scary because it you have no idea what happened. And then when they tell you what happened, you just kind of put yourself in that place. It's the unexpected death that really scared me. I'm going to talk about one more. And again, uh, this is from Spielberg's version of War of the Worlds. And it's implied horror. You do not see the actual act.
Hmm.
You know what I'm going to talk about?
I don't remember that movie very well. I remember like all the people what happens when they
It's
get
the
sucked
Tim
up into
Robbins
that
scene.
thing. Uh,
It's the scene
go
with
ahead
Tim
and tell me, and
Robbins.
I'll try to remember it.
Okay, so uh,
That movie didn't blow me away, which is part of why I don't remember it very well.
no, but this scene scared the hell out of me. And
Hmm.
again, it's because all the violence is implied. So uh, Tom Cruise is hiding with his daughter. They're trying to get away from the aliens, and they're running through a field, and the aliens are pursuing them, and they come up on a farmhouse, and Tim Robbins is in the farmhouse, and he says, "Oh, come on, man, we got to, I'll help you, I'll help hide you." And then, of course, the aliens see him go to the house, and Tim Robbins is just unhinged, and he's raving and raving about the aliens and how, this is payback for the way we've done things, and but they still have to be resisted. So he grabs a shotgun and he's going to expose that Tom Cruise and his daughter are hiding in the house, and he's going to give it up, and he's going to make it so that they get found. So Tom Cruise has to take him into the other room and murder him in cold blood because he's about to go out and show the aliens where they're hidden.
Yeah, I don't. This that rings a bell, but I don't recall it, and I think that's
And,
just because the movie sort of
and he
left me
tells
cold.
Dakota Fanning, and she must have been 8 or 9 years old when they made this movie, stay here. Do not come out. Do not come out. No matter what you hear, do not come out.
Hmm.
Put yourself in both Tom Cruise's place and Dakota Fanning's place at the same time. This guy has to go and straight up cold blood murder Tim Robbins. And so he's got to screw his courage to the sticking place, as Shakespeare would say, and take another man's life and do it quickly.
Hmm.
So that's got to be horrifying. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what you have to do, but can you do it? And will you succeed? And then there's Dakota Fanning, 9-year-old kid who's already been traumatized, who's already had a plane crash into her house, and she's already seen people vaporized on the street, and they're running and running and running and running in total chaos. And now dad says, go wait here. You have no idea what's happening. You don't know if he's going to sacrifice himself because, throw the aliens off her trail. You don't know what's going to happen. And so she is just cowering, and there are all these lights from the aliens trying to search through the house, and then you hear screams from Tim Robbins getting murdered, and it's just total chaos. And she has got to just stay where she is. I mean, and you think about yourself, if I were that kid in that situation, would I be able to just sit there in all this mayhem and not go to my dad, or would I just run to him and end up with all of his dad?
Mhm.
And so, I mean, you really just kind of see everybody's point of view,
I
and
need to
that's
give that
terrifying.
movie another chance. You're making me realize I should go back and check it out again. That
Well,
wasn't
I don't
fair.
think it was a great movie, but
Mhm.
even really bad movies can have a super scary scene in it.
That is true. That is true.
And it will make a really bad movie even more memorable. It's not going to save the movie. It's not going to fix it. You got any more? Because I got one or two more.
Yeah, I'll just bounce a couple real quick off you. One, I
Okay.
just want to give, I just want to give a real quick nod. You were talking about Ash the robot,
Hmm.
which made me think of course, Ash Williams. And so the original Evil Dead
Yeah.
was, was the real deal. It was done on the budget was a prayer, and legendary about them going around and collecting money so they could put this movie together. And Sam Raimi had a really unique eye for horror.
Yeah.
But there's the possession scene when Cheryl's possessed and she bounces up into the air. That's the kind of thing now that's been done a lot,
Yes.
but it was really Sam Raimi's vision, and she's up there sort of hanging from the ceiling. I mean,
Uh-huh.
she's not literally, she's supposed to be floating, but um, the possession scene in that movie is great. There's a lot of great scares in that movie, but I love
Yeah.
that possession scene. But I'm going to real quick mention, just because, and this will be the last one I mention,
Hmm.
I made reference to it at the beginning when
Yeah.
I don't remember why, but I started talking about a certain type of movie where you try to go back and you look at it and you try to show it to somebody and they're just like, what? What's scary? There's nothing scary
Yeah.
here.
Right. Right.
But when you see it in context, it's really scary. And that, you ever see a movie? It's obscure in general. It's a very low budget movie. You didn't see
Hmm.
it very many places, but it's very popular in the horror set called It Follows.
Oh, yeah. That's a great movie.
You did see it. Okay,
Oh,
good.
yeah. I went and saw that at the theater.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love it when I find people who are into that movie. So you might know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
That's the when the tall man appears from the
Uh-huh.
hall behind. I've tried to show that to people, and then I've looked at it myself, and I'm like, oh yeah, this really isn't very scary. But when you're watching the movie, it's this story is there's this curse passed on by sex, where if you get the curse, somebody's going to keep following you. Somebody only you can see. They look different every time. They might be a man in one case, a woman in another, but there's something
And they're going to murder you.
unnerving, and they're going to kill you when they get to you. And it's not a hallucination. It's tangible because, she has friends who try to intercede and they get hurt.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
anyway, there's this moment before anybody believes her about what's going on, where she's in the room of a friend in this house and banging on the door, and the door opens, and it's just her friend, but the hall is dark behind her. And it's like,
Hmm.
oh no, it's okay. It's just me. And then from the shadow right behind,
Hmm.
and since it's only visible to her and the
Right.
audience, the other people in the room, including the person, her friend who she's talking to in the hall, don't see it. So it becomes this
Hmm.
lurking, very off. Something about him is very off looking, very tall,
Yeah.
sort of gangly dude who just walks up and starts walking around him. And I say, you just look at it. If you Google this scene and you look at it, you're going to be like, what the hell is he talking about? But it was so scary when you saw
Yeah.
it. Oh
No, it
my
really
God.
was. Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why it's so scary is because that was right about the time that the murder trial was going on
Which murder
with the two
trial?
girls.
Wait, no, I don't remember what murder trial.
It was a murder trial where one of the girls, as a defense, said the tall man told her to kill her friend.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. What are you talking about? I know this. Anyways, yeah. You're ringing all kinds of bells. That was then.
That was going on then. And so I'm sure it had been in the news, and that's why he threw the guy in there.
Mm.
But yeah, no, that's a great movie. And that movie reminded me a lot of Let Me In because of the scene where they're in the pool.
Hmm.
and they're trying to kill the whatever apparition it is that keeps following them.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that's another one. Okay, so I've got a couple more I'm going to throw out here. Um, where is it? Oh, one of them is a throwaway, but it scared the crap out of me in the theater. It's a jump scare, and it's Albert Brooks and Dan Aykroyd at the very. There's like this cut scene. It goes all the way through the movie, or partially through the movie, where Albert Brooks is driving Dan Aykroyd down the road, and they're talking about scary stuff. And he keeps saying, Dan Aykroyd keeps going, "Do you want to see something really scary?" And Albert Brooks is like, "Yeah, later, whatever." And they're talking about stuff. And then finally, they're pulled over to the road, off the side of the road. And Dan Aykroyd says, "Look, I'm trying to show you this thing that's really scary." And he says, "Okay, all right, show it to me." So Dan Aykroyd he's in the passenger side, and he turns toward the window, and then when he comes back, he's wearing this blue latex horror mask, and he attacks Albert Brooks, and bites into his throat, and blood goes everywhere. And it's supposed to remind you of the "coming to get you, Barbara" scene from A Night of the Living Dead, but you know something's coming. You don't have any idea what it is, and when it does, it's like it slaps you in the face. You're just shocked and scared to death. And I was 19 years old. I shouldn't have been scared at that. And in fact, I'm like you. Most horror movies I laugh out loud at, and it's not the kind of inappropriate laughing that you do when you're uncomfortable in a scene. It's the holy crap, that is completely unintentionally funny.
There's those. I also, the ones I like, I tend to get a big grin on my face and go,
Mhm.
cool. So in either case, I'm not getting scared, you know?
Yeah, I mean, scary movies don't scare me many times because of what Roger Ebert called the idiot plot. And this applies to horror films, but there are a lot of other films that it applies to too.
Mhm.
And the idiot plot is a convention invented by Roger Ebert. And he said the problem with a lot of movies is if one character stops acting like an idiot, movie's over.
Yeah.
And we saw that commercial for one of the insurance companies that showed that completely, like where they're like, "Whatever you do, don't split up." And then what do, they split up. And they're like,
Yeah, that's a
"Look, let's
great
go hide
commercial.
here in this concrete bunker where he can't get to us. Or let's go hide in this barn that's full of chainsaws."
Hmm. Hmm. It's
And so,
great. A lot of that's lampooned in Cabin in the Woods too, which
yeah,
is one of
yeah.
my favorite movies. I swear to God.
And so, yeah, that's a pretty good one. And the other one I'm going to talk about, and this is the last one I want to talk about, although I think you said you wanted to talk about The Wizard of Oz for a second.
Oh no, that was just we're all scared of that one when we're kids. Just
Okay, well,
you know,
what scared me more than that? The
you
Flying
know.
Monkeys.
Well, I mean, it had to be by default. I was figuring, but
It was the Flying Monkeys.
it was
Those
the
I
Flying
had
Monkeys,
nightmares
huh?
about the Flying Monkeys for years. So my last one is more not scared horror, but horror of irony, of unexpected circumstances, and I'm talking about The Mist.
Oh, The Mist.
Now,
Yeah,
look,
what a grim movie, huh?
now I'm going to talk to our listeners here. If you have not seen the movie The Mist, stop the podcast now, turn it off, don't come back, because I'm going to spoil one of the best endings of any horror movie ever made.
Yeah.
Three, two, one, shut it down, because I'm
Yeah.
about to spoil it.
Boy, how depressing was that ending, huh?
Oh, it was terrible. It was so bleak. It's just awful. So here's what happens. Uh, Army, the government's messing around with interdimensional experiments. Fog rolls into this tiny New England town. Yes, it's based on a Stephen King story. And they are invaded by horrible creatures, giant wasps, huge spiders, tentacle monsters. And there are a bunch of people trapped in a grocery store. And so four of the main characters get out, and the main character is played by an actor named Thomas Jane, and he's genius in this movie. Then there's three other people, his son, and then two other people who got out of the store. Well, they're driving away, and some of the monsters you see in the driving scene at the end is they're trying to get away, but they can't get out of the mist. There's nowhere to go, and then the car runs out of gas. And one of the monsters you see is like this 50-foot tall, four-legged elephant, rhino, giraffe cross. And they're dead. If they get out of the car, they're going to get found by these horrible monsters which tear you to pieces and eat you and kill you in the most terrible way. So you see him stop the car, and then they show a wide shot of the car, and you see and hear bam, 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 3 gunshots and flashes in the car. So he's killed everybody in the car, including his own son, rather than have them being eaten by these monsters.
Oh,
So he
yeah.
gets out of the car and he stumbles down and he's got the gun in his hand and he gets down on his knees and he puts the gun up underneath his chin. And then the fog lifts and some tanks and trucks are rolling by. And if he had just waited another minute or two, they would have been saved. But he killed his own kid and 2 complete strangers to save them from the monster. And now he has to live with the survivor's guilt and the pain and the horror of what he did. And it's disgust, it's shame, it's terror. It is one of the most effective endings of a horror movie possible,
Yeah, man.
because
Oh, God.
you have the you snatch victory from, I mean, you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And that's not the original ending of the movie. The original ending of the movie was they all got away with it and they escaped. And Frank Darabont rewrote it, and they went, yeah, we got to talk to Stephen King about this because we're not sure he's going to go along with this. And Stephen King said, that's the best idea I've ever heard. Of course you have to film that ending. Of course you have to film that ending. But it is, you will leave the theater going, oh, humans are horrible.
Oh, yeah. You will be devastated. It's such a
I really
such a
think that's
grim ending.
one of the central themes of the movie is that people are worse than the monsters.
Yeah, isn't that often what you see in monster movies and such?
It's
Well, that's what
often
you see in a lot of zombie movies, I should
it's
say.
also what
That's
you see in a lot of Stephen King movies.
yeah.
But no, I think we've covered this topic pretty well, and I think we could probably do 6 or 8 more shows on
Oh,
this.
yeah. I think we're pretty well wrapped up here. You mentioned giant monsters in mist, so I just want to say if you haven't seen the 2010 movie Monsters, go see it. That's all I'll
Yeah,
say.
that's a good movie.
That's a good one. And yeah, so I think we've covered it for the moment. We'll probably
Yep.
be doing a lot more with horror because we've been leaving it alone too much. So
Yep.
we'll spend more time talking about horror soon. But in the meantime, thanks everybody for
Yeah.
listening. Big fun today, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Yep, sure will. Thanks, everybody.
Our theme music is by Christopher Piatek.